It is the official podcast of Manatee County government. It's Chambers, Changes, and Conversations, the show that takes you inside the services, successes, and stories shaping our community. I'm Communications Division Manager Casey Zempel, joined by the coolest director in Manatee County, our Director of Government Relations, Stephanie Garrison, and this week's guest represents our region's largest city and county seat. From revitalizing downtown, expanding recreational amenities, to strengthening partnerships in Manatee County, his leadership is focused on ensuring Bradenton remains a thriving place to live, work, and raise a family. He's volunteered, he's coached, built a successful business, and he's been an advocate for our community for years. He is Mayor of the City of Bradenton, Gene Brown. Mayor, welcome to Chambers, Changes, and Conversations.
Thank you guys for having me, and it's an honor to be here, and it's just something that within our community that we're proud to do things and really make people better.
Yeah, and we love that you're here. And Stephanie, you and I, we've been, the podcast we've done, I don't even know how many episodes now.
This is episode 14.
14. So in every one of those episodes, we've interviewed a leader, right? And what we're quickly realizing is every leader's kind of got that origin story, right? So tell us that. What is your origin story? Why did you choose a life of public service, and what led you to become mayor of the city of Bradenton?
Well, you know, when you look back, you never was planning on getting into politics over the years. And as a young child, 8 years old, I walked into a boys club, is what it was called at that time, Boys and Girls Club now, and everybody knows the Boys and Girls Clubs in Manatee County and around the country. They're so great helping children. But I walked in there at 8 years old, a very shy, nervous young man. And, you know, our family is 7 generations with my grandkids now. But at that point, it was really that thing. I walked in there and, you know, didn't know what I was going to do. My parents had just started our family funeral home, so they could not leave. 1975, you didn't have cell phones. You didn't have pagers. Somebody always had to be at the funeral home. And with my mom and dad being the only employees and had the kids, I was able to ride my bike from 26th Street by Manatee Junior College at that time, now State College of Florida. But I was able to ride my bike to the boys club. So I walk in there, and going through the next 10 years from 8 to 18 at that club really kind of shaped me. And it wasn't the building as much, it was the people in the club. It was Carl Weeks, Mike Johns, Mike Marabella, Jeff Sauerbear. Those were staff members. But it was also those volunteer fathers, Mr. Hasselbeck, Mr. Hale. Just I could go through numerous names, but all of those guys that were there that really started shaping who I was. And I was the nervous kid and didn't have a lot of friends, so I kind of surrounded myself with the adults, working behind the desk, helping the staff. And I really think with family and then those people, it said, oh, how can we help people? And went to college. You know, I was actually, and I say this tongue-in-cheek because it's funny when you talk about it, I was the last boy of the year for the Boys and Girls Club, because then it switched to Youth of the Year with the movement to go to Boys and Girls Club, and which was a great organization, helps kids. And when I was going, it was a little bit more of a sports-oriented situation. Now it's more of how we're helping those that need us the most. So that's where, you know, and it's a long story, but it gets to the point of, hey, how do I see all those adults giving back, see my parents giving back? What am I going to do? I go to college, play football a couple years, go to mortuary school, come home, and all the time I never stopped helping at the Boys Club, Boys and Girls Club now, and really been involved with that board for my whole life. Been home 36 years from college, been on the board 36 years. And so when you look back and you know, started having a family, kids, doing stuff at the schools with the SAC and the PTO, helping coach the kids growing up. My kids are a lot more athletic than I was. You know, I think they, you know, really had a great high school, college careers when they go through it. But it's what you give back to the kids. And that's what it showed from the Boys and Girls Club. So I can truly say, because of family and the Boys and Girls Club, I'm the father, the community person, and the politician, if you want to say it. And I always said I wasn't a politician, but when you're in it, you're a politician. Sure. You can't get away from it. But you can be that good, positive, collaborative politician. And I say this a lot. When you don't need the job, you do a better job at it.
Yep.
And that's, you know, I'm fortunate enough to have a great family business. There's other, for my son and sister-in-law and dad, still doing a lot of other family members still in the business. But, you know, here I am, and it's going to be what we're going to change for the next generation to make our community better. It's not about the city of Bradenton only. It's about community. And that's truly in my heart.
That's such a cool story. And I heard you say 7 generations here in Bradenton.
And yes, in Manatee County.
In Manatee
First 3
County.
were Cortez fishermen. So lived there. My dad realized in the 60s it wasn't something that was still kind of growing like it was. And he went into Vietnam and got out of that with a medical injury and was on the courthouse steps right up here across the street from where we are. And he had left and his mom had kicked him out a little bit and wasn't maybe doing things as much right. And one of his friends that worked at a funeral home downtown here drove by in the hearse going to the hospital and saw my dad sleeping on the courthouse steps. So, and he said, "Chuck, what are you doing?" And he goes, "Well, I just got back. The bus just dropped him off." Of course, there was no cell phones or communication. He said, "I'm going to sleep here tonight and figure it out." And he goes, "Well, get in, help me tonight, make ambulance calls," because Manatee County, of course, we celebrated a few years ago the 50th anniversary of our EMS and ambulances. In 1967, the funeral homes actually did it. They did if somebody accident, they would go pick them up and take them to the hospital, and because they had a hearse and
They
a
had
stretcher,
the abilities.
And my dad said over the time, and just a short story on
Please.
that, said that was not something they liked doing.
I bet.
Because 11-year-old gets hit by a car, you can't help them. All you do is you help them by getting them to the hospital quickly. But just some of those stories, it's like, wow, now there's life-saving stories when they get to the scenes, and that's what great it is. But so Terry Rupenthal was the gentleman's name that picked him up and said, "I'll buy you dinner." And of course that was good. "And I'll give you a place to sleep if you just help me on ambulance calls tonight." That was 1967. 1975, he opened our funeral home. In 2025, we're celebrating 50 years in the funeral business. So that's a service business that has helped me be a better mayor, because when you're helping people, at the saddest time of their life for the most part, and when you're willing to do that, somebody's garbage not getting picked up on time, we can figure that out. But when somebody's lost a loved one, we can't change that. And I've used that with some people because I'm a phone call guy. And this is something you hear a lot. I email you back. Thank you for your email. Please send me a phone number to call. And, in the society we're in today, I will call you back. You send me a phone number, I will call you back. But we've got keyboard warriors and we have keyboard cowards. And I'll say it because the keyboard warrior is the one that maybe reads something, doesn't understand it, puts something out there. You send them, and they send you an email. You send them a message. They send you a number, and you call and you talk. You may agree to disagree, or you may get the true information out, and that's important. But then when the keyboard coward shoots out all the negative stuff and doesn't send you a phone number, and I'm okay with saying that because I want to communicate. If you just totally disagree with me, that's okay, but we talked and we'll go through it, and maybe I can listen to your side, and you know what? Maybe we can kind of navigate through that and get more of a peaceful way instead of just napalm, and that's the wrong way to be.
And that's a challenge with a life of public service, right? I mean, and sometimes hostility is it's always got to be met with the respect that the comment deserves, because behind it is a concern, right? It's
important. I just want to, if I can say one last thing on that. There's a lot of days that all of us in politics, and when you pick a decision, you make a decision, you work forward, and you got to look at and I say the 4 corners of the city, but it's really our whole community. How's it going to affect this person, that person? And sometimes there's decisions that are made that we have to, it's going to affect somebody. But, those days that I'm stressing over it or going through it, or something that I thought, could I have done better? At that, I go home and talk to my wife. I'll go home and I'll be kind of having a rough day or whatever, and I'll say something to her, and she'll look at me and she goes, "Listen, you signed up for this and you like it so much, I don't want to hear about it," in a funny way, which brings back to reality what's important in life. And so that's just something I just want to definitely say that I'm the very lucky person to have the wife that I have, and obviously the whole rest of the family that allows me to do this, and that's what's important.
Good man. Well, so just kind of helping, maybe it's a new resident who's listening or someone who's not as familiar with the city of Bradenton. You mentioned the 4 corners of Bradenton. Draw those 4 corners for me and tell me about, in your words, who is in the city of Bradenton? How would you talk about our residents to someone not familiar with it?
Right, and that's the thing. Well, first I'd say is You cannot draw a square box in those four corners because our boundaries, everybody wants to know about the boundaries and why can I live on this side of the street and I'm in the city and right across the street is the county. Well, over the years, when you're a city that's we're 122 years old, going to be 123 next year in May, and over time, annexation, different things, but really the city of Bradenton is a waterway city when you look at it. We're not surrounded by water like the islands are, but when you go from Perico, Manatee Avenue, the bridge there, all the way out to underneath the 75, which is city still, but there's a lot of places in between that aren't. And so you have to figure out, what you can do in the city, what you can do in the county. And that's why the collaboration is so important, because literally you can live in the middle. There's a pod in the middle of the city that is a square that's the county. And, we collaborate together, we work together. There's good times and things happen in the county and the city, and there's tough times because you're collaborating on things that might not always align. But in the city of Bradenton, to me, as a lifelong adult living in the city of Bradenton, so our family is living in the county in the Cortez area, but when I got out of college, I bought a house on 32nd Street and off Manatee Avenue, and that's the city my whole life. And I wasn't in politics then. I was 21 years old, getting ready to get married, start a family and all that, and really said, okay, what's in our city? Well, I was working a lot, but as you start to grow and you see it, we had to go other places. If you wanted to do something with your family, you had to go to Sarasota, go to St. Pete. There was other things, or go to the mall, and walk around the mall, which the mall was a lot different. There is no malls anymore. They went downtowns where you're thriving in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Then all of a sudden the malls came in, and they were one location with big box stores, kind of like it is, and it was working well. So a lot of times on Friday or Saturday night when we had a 5 and a 3-year-old, we'd go to the mall. And we'd walk the mall, shop a little bit, go to the food court as they grew, and have fun. So there was something to do. Skating, was a thing back then, and sometimes you do it. But then when you really look at it, you said, okay, what's next? And now from what the downtowns were then to the mall-type structures, and now the downtowns are starting to come back in areas. It was the city of Bradenton was a little bit behind some of our surrounding areas. So now what can we do to bring that back? We're starting. Some of the projects take longer than we want in government, but when you're going to talk about on our City Hall site right now, when you're going to start to bring more entertainment to that area, and it's adult, family-friendly entertainment. Some areas you have a lot of bars, and that's okay, but you got to have things for other people to do that don't just want to go sit at a bar for 3 or 4 hours. You want to be able to go out to dinner in the downtown area, walk where you are, go see maybe a little bit of a show of some sort. And we're lucky as we grow a little bit, and I still think we're 3 or 4 years away from that next step, just because of infrastructure, timing, the economy, but we're getting close. And that's exciting, where the adults that don't necessarily want to go to a bar, they could have other things to do. Restaurants along the waterfront, rooftop bars. One of the things to me that was, as a councilman, when Spring Hill Suites came in, that was a new thing for the city to get a big hotel right downtown. Even though Hampton Inn was there, it was kind of in that transition, and it's a little bit more of a one-night stay, go in and out, for business people. But Spring Hill Suites was going to say, okay, bring it. But traditionally, a Spring Hill Suites does not have a restaurant like that in it. Well, one of my good friends that I would see every Friday night at a football game would tell me, he goes, why are you guys giving that? I got sidewalks that need to fix. I got this, I got that. Totally understandable. And we want to fix all those sidewalks and potholes and that. But we gave them an impact fee credit. They spent over $1 million putting that rooftop bar in and restaurant for a $74,000 or $76,000 investment the city made. That now has been one of the most successful restaurants in Oak and Stone's history. They're breaking records from what I'm being told.
It's delicious.
Because of the
view alone.
Bar.
Yeah.
The view alone. Yeah. So go back to this young man, but he's older than me, nice guy. And he said, well, I'll never go down to that, so it doesn't mean anything to me. And I said, well, I think it was a good investment. Let's see if it works. Well, it's worked. And, of course, that opened right when COVID was going on. So you didn't know how things were going to go.
It's a gamble.
And it was a gamble at that point. There's other restaurants that were offered at first. some big name local people that wish they would have taken it now because it's been that successful. But so a couple years go by. I don't see him at as many football games. He's an older gentleman. He's not able to probably come as much, but he listens on the radio, he told me. So I see, and again, I'm a Facebook reader. I'm not a Facebook poster. I don't do it. It's like my newspaper. It's your birthday, it's your anniversary, it's something. That's what Facebook is meant to be. The other things I read and then think, okay, how can I not prove that person wrong, but give them enough information to understand where we are? So I see on Facebook, I see a picture of him and his wife celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. Where are they? On top of the rooftop.
Love it.
Restaurant
That's
up there.
awesome. That's great.
I've never seen him since. I've never talked to him, but he's actually got that picture. So that made me feel like we've done something with a little bit of courage. As a government, you got to take some chances sometimes, and it worked.
I love that. You brought up the downtown, so I would love to talk more about that. Tell us what you imagine possible for the downtown in Bradenton, especially for the young folks here, the young families who are thinking about maybe getting their first home or getting their first apartment, living out from their families. What might they expect that if you could paint a vision for Bradenton?
And then that's where I said, hopefully within 3 to 4, 5 years, we're going to have that picture a lot more filled in. One of the things we're doing is City Park, and that's still, it's out there, but it's not out there real publicly. One of the things is right next to LECOM, where the Pirates play 6 weeks a year, the Marauders play during the summer, which is so it's not activated as much as we want it to be. And so by bringing in City Park, and the reason we called it City Park, because when the city started and baseball started in 1923, St. Louis Cardinals were the first team, and it was played at City Park. So we're trying to revitalize that area, bring back where we can have tournament baseball and other activities year-round. And I heard this the other day, and it's just so disappointing in a way that I'm saying that, again, tongue-in-cheek, that I always said I wanted to bring REO Speedwagon in here for a concert at City Park.
Yeah.
Well, I heard they broke up finally because, and I'll say this, and it's corny, but my wife and our wedding song was "I Can't Fight This Feeling Anymore" by REO Speedwagon.
Beautiful.
And I'm not.
Yeah.
So I think that could be something that if you brought something like that, it would be a great thing for our downtown. So if we have, it's not only going to be baseball only, but we'll be able to bring 8 to 10 to 12 tournaments down a year, which will be about a $10 to $12 million economic impact just for the downtown, spreading out through the whole county.
Yeah.
Because again, hotels, rooms, food, all of that. And again, we are a sports community if you really look around.
We totally
There's opportunity.
are, yeah.
So we're bringing 4 fields there. But one of the biggest things at City Park is Rogers Gardens Elementary is a part of that whole project. Bradenton Village is on that square. And, those are people that sometimes need a little bit extra, a little help that we can give. Putting next to Rogers Community Center that will be run by POW, but it's not just a POW center in the afternoon. It's going to be a 50,000+ square foot building that will give opportunity for children and young adults to have all day learning in there, working with the county. And that's one of the things. The county has partnered so well with us on that to go through and do things. The state government, the federal government, getting money. And when you look at it, when that thing is built, I don't ever want to wish my life away. None of us do it. And as you get older, it even makes it more, I don't want to wish 3 years away. But if we could get to 3 years right now and you have the ball fields there, cleans it up. By the way, in the meantime, we've done a LECOM study with the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which I've been on that board now for probably 8 or 9 years. We love our partners to the south, Sarasota, Manatee County, but Sarasota used to get a lot. I was chairman last year. I'm vice chairman this year. I'll be chairman of that board again. And it's not getting us anything special in Manatee County. It's asking for what we need and getting things. So that study going through down there, there's money put in the funds for 2030 that it's going to redo 9th Street all the way to downtown. And then we have Village of the Arts that will play into it. And I went through this with the Village of the Arts the other day with their board. And I didn't just tell them what we're doing for Village of the Arts. It has to look at the 4 corners of the county, what we're doing and changing it. So that's all flowing in. So the reason I bring that up with your question is you have a vibrant area there that's having things happen. You've changed neighborhoods by putting a community center. The school district is helping. The county is helping, talked about with transportation, because our biggest thing now is for the people that need us the most, they can't get transportation to places. If I need to get my granddaughter somewhere and my kids can't do it, my wife and I will help. They don't have the network. So now if the bus will go from that community center after they've got their diploma there, help with the school district, out to Manatee Technical College. So this isn't just the City of Bradenton, Manatee County. It's the school district. State College of Florida has now called us. Learning Coalition of Manatee County, all the health department. So really tying that into a community that then makes that area great, Village of the Arts great, and walkable. You go to a big city right now, and you'll walk 2, 3, 4 miles because there's stuff to do. From right where we are in this building to Lecom Park is less than a mile. Raise your hand in this room if you would walk it right now the way it's set up. You wouldn't. So we're trying to figure out how we connect those activities for that young person that might like art, that might like some sort of sports and entertainment, might like to go sit and just watch the traffic go by at a restaurant, at a coffee shop, at a Danish shop, jog, do that stuff where we can connect it. We will always have Manatee Avenue and 6th Avenue. We've got to figure out reasons to make it safer to get across it. You're not going to be able to put the walk over bridges. There's not enough space. You're not going to be able to change that. So how do we work within it and make it safe, secure, and walkable? And oh, by the way, when you get to the end of the city on Main Street, what do you hit? A 3-mile stretch of a Riverwalk that is one of the award-winning Riverwalks that the city did to 2012, and we've actually enhanced it. Now we're getting calls from people that want to do some of the structures and put more on Riverwalk where there is a little bit more live, work, and play and have opportunity to maybe live in a restaurant there. I just heard this morning one of our police officers has moved into 920. So he's able to walk to hit his police car, and he doesn't have to worry about it. And he doesn't need a car because his job is his police car, and he just parks his car. So 920 is a great opportunity for younger people that are getting into the different professions,
young professionals
that don't need a vehicle that they drive every day, and because the parking is a little quirky there. Yeah. But if we wouldn't have tried that, and I say we because the city had put a bunch in, they'd done a bunch with our 3 projects that just opened, Riverview 6, 920, and Astoria on 9th, which is different market rate type cost but they were all 3 dead in the water because there wasn't enough money. And our county jumped in and said, hey, they're county people too, and put in money to do that. And some people say it was wasted. Look at the now that we have it.
They're beautiful.
They're beautiful, and they're coming together. And some of them are filled up already, and some of them are on the way. And it's about what range you do. And again, do you love everything about what I've just talked about? Maybe not. But look at the good parts about it and how to grow the rest. And I think that's what the community needs to listen to.
So what does that mean to you? Like Commissioner Ron always talks about this too, right? Like a return to Mayberry. Like, man, when we were kids, we used to, the street lights would come on. That's when we knew we needed to be home. As a kid that, rode his bike, it was safe enough to ride his bike on 26th. What does it mean to you personally to see a return to that in areas like Lecom, in the riverfront improvements? What does that mean to you as a person, as a citizen?
And as like I said earlier, when you look at the old cities, kind of before my time, because I was growing up as a kid in the mall era, and now we're looking back, we want to come back to that. We want to have where you can live, work, and play, and maybe never get in a car. And some people think that by some developments downtown in the urban core where you go higher, so you get more people in a smaller area, that's going to bring more traffic. There's studies that show that it brings less traffic because people park their car, and the goal is never to drive it, and that's the good part. So, I would love to be able. I live downtown now. We live in Riverdance, right on the river, and in a condo. But with everything I do, I never walk to work, I would love to be able, because I have to go here, I have to go there. But if there's more of that here and there, then I wouldn't have to get in the car as much. And so I always think about it. I'm driving across the street to get to work, but then I might have to go to a bank somewhere else. I might have to go to a restaurant somewhere else. Might have to go do some other things. More stuff downtown creates less vehicles on the road. And when you look at the city, I don't blame anybody for this, and it's a lot of through traffic. So we've worked on some traffic control, and I will say this, the lights are synced together. We have
here.
We have an officer that goes out every morning and every afternoon before the rush hour and check them. Every once in a while, something will happen. And we work with the county, with the state, DOT, that if something goes wrong, and I'm hoping right now that we're going to be working with Palmetto, because at some points it seems like the 3 Palmetto lights, when at night, they might get off sync. And if they get off sync a little bit, it does back up on the bridge. Because the volume has not changed. Well, I want to take that back. I'll say 44th Avenue East, I believe, has changed the volume downtown. It doesn't look as busy in the morning, and it doesn't look as busy at night. But it's flowing better. Left turn lane on onto Manatee Avenue off of 9th. People thought we were crazy with that on Facebook. Called 2 of my friends that posted stuff, explained it to them. They said, that makes total sense. It has moved the traffic south quicker. It has moved it north because it doesn't have to do that. And the 2 people that called me and complained about it, I said, well, you got 9th, 8th, 4th, and 3rd. So it's just they didn't know it until they got there. And when they said, oh, you're right, and the one person that lives off of 26th Street in Riverview Boulevard area, he said it actually is quicker for me to go down 9th because I was sitting waiting to get on Manatee Avenue. So when you kind of an alternative and do some things, and we worked with DOT. I say we, the county, the city, and DOT worked together to figure out with some of our legislators too, because when they came out with their first plan, we said it's not going to work. Well, the engineers in Brandon said it would work. Well, we said, wait a minute, come drive it with us. We'll see it. And so they came up with a plan. They said, all right, you guys are right. Let's do it. And I said, if it doesn't work, then we want it to go back to a left turn lane. Well, so far in 6, 7, 8 months now, it seems to be working. So your government is working together for you, and we're not just doing things willy-nilly and letting the state or others tell us what to do. They're working with us.
You have been an incredible partner to our board and our county staff. You're one of the first people that we think of when we need to do something and work with our municipal partners. Can you talk a little bit about what that's like from your end, especially for folks who may not understand? Within Manatee County, we have 6 municipalities. City of Bradenton is one of them. What's that like for you and your council to work with the county? And maybe as someone who's maybe not known about that, how would you explain it to them?
Well, I think when you look back over the years, and this is one of my main goals, I was on the city council for almost 8 years, had to resign to run for mayor because of a timing issue. And so it was just a little gap in the election cycle. And I was fortunate enough to win and was very proud that what they had seen, I had been on the council positive for all the years, that it was rolled into the mayor. We did not have a great relationship because of something that happened 25 years ago with the county and the city. And there wasn't a bad relationship, but it was just no relationship. So I always thought, how am I going to work? People do not realize this, but 49% of our ad valorem that we pay in the city of Bradenton goes to the county. So for every $1 that we pay of ad valorem tax, 49 cents goes to the county because we're so intertwined. So my goal is you have to have a relationship when 49% of something is going to them. So it was always about collaboration, working together. You're going to see every 2 years there's an election. So there's always going to be changes. But it's how do we set things up that it's outside of politics, that you work with each other. You and I may not agree politically. We may not agree other things, but we are going to agree that we love our community, all of us. And how do we then work together for the good of the whole? And that's the important part. And so that's why I think we get along with all of our municipalities and the county. And is there going to be a time that we have a little hiccup in the road? Every relationship does.
Sure.
And a marriage. If your marriage is 100%, you're not really married. If you don't have a hiccup in the road, or you drive it tonight, I don't feel like driving, just silly stuff. And we can work through that. And that's the most important thing to me. It's not that I'm right and you're wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong. It's how we work together and get through the next step. And then majority rules, and you have to move on. So if you're in the majority, you're happy. If you're in the minority, you got to say, okay, how can I then figure out to get stuff that I think could work better? And that's important to me.
What would you say that the city of Bradenton needs most from Manatee County?
Just the collaboration we've had, working together and saying, okay, I may not like this, but how does it work in the city and that? Because again, even if you're in the city, we're still Manatee County residents. And if you're most of the area that the city is, we have great representation from our commissioners, but they're still in the city, so, and again, 3 of them in boundaries cross the city at some point. three of our commissioners. So it's about how we work together, how we look at it, and then how we agree to disagree or we work together to get through those. And it's not about I'm right and you're wrong again. It's about how we're going to make it better for the majority of the citizens at the moment, because we know the majority of the citizens this moment in 5 minutes, it's going to be a total different majority of something going back and forth. And that's where you have to really look in government and try to figure out a way to say, what's the good of the whole? What am I willing to stand up to? And then be able to explain it. Because a lot of things that we do, right in the moment, some people might say, oh, that's terrible. 5 years from now, that same person is saying that's the best thing they ever did. But you got to get through some of those moments.
Right. You have to have vision,
right.
See the long term.
And I think that your emphasis on collaboration, on shared responsibilities is a profound one and refreshing, quite frankly. So infrastructure, that's one of those shared responsibility things, right? Your face it, fix it, wastewater upgrades reflect that long-term infrastructure, the challenges that really all governments face. What has that process been like for the city, and what lessons can we take away from how you guys are leading by example and facing it and fixing it?
So in January of 2021, when I got sworn in, one of the biggest things, and I'd been there for 8 years, really in the trenches for 8 years, and really as a council member, you're supposed to set policy, step back, let the organization run. And so that's what I did. And I still learned and studied things. We didn't have as many issues that were popping up at the moment then, but I looked out and I said, talked with our public works director and some things. We started having a few things popping up. We did over a lot of years. We had a lot of road systems that needed paved, city roads, and county and city, state, we don't control, but we work with to say, this is worse than what it is, and we can't wait till 3 years from now to fix it. So you work in those circles. But we were having city roads that were in bad shape, but also underneath that road, the pipes were good. But another road, the pipes were bad that we had realized because we had started doing a study. And it's like, how do we fix that? Because the worst thing to me in government is you pave a road and it's all pretty. And 3 months later, they come and dig it up, half of it, and fix pipes. Now, if a pipe breaks, you can't help it. But so where's our management processes and all that? So we started going through some management processes, and we knew city pipes were getting old, but we weren't having as much problem at that moment. So the ARPA money came in, and, people know, and I said this publicly, I didn't want to mortgage our grandchildren's future by spending trillions of dollars. If there's a way to do something that's going to help our grandchildren's future, then we do it. So, I thought, how are we going to manage this $11 million that we got? To the county, $11 million wasn't a lot. You got 70 plus million, but $11 million to anybody is a lot of money. So I brought a plan to the council, and with great support, that we took $9 million of that $11 million and started lining some of our pipes right then. So it was like we put it towards it, because if we're going to get money that's going to mortgage our grandchildren's future, let's put it towards something that's going to help their future. So we did that before. Then Waterkeepers comes in, which I met with Waterkeepers over at an event that I went to, and I said, we're already starting stuff. So they came in and they did their lawsuit. There's no lies about that. I'm not going to hide it or anything. So some target markets. And I said, we're already doing some of it, but we can't tax our way out of the situation that the city's in. What's been the last 40, 50 years, and I don't want to say neglect, but it's things that in government you don't do as much as you do in a private business. But I'll tell you right now, Brown & Sons Funeral Home on 26th Street is 50 years old now. I realize now we have pipes under that building that we're talking about we're having more backups, we're having more things. So, and I say that because now I understand that. Before I'd be, why is this happening? Because they're all the cast iron pipes from 1975. They're old things. So we've got a gentleman coming in the near future that's going to camera that and then tell us how to line that. And so that's where you won't have the issues for another 50 years. So that's what we're doing with the Face It and Fix It. I came up with that before Waterkeepers ever got involved in where we're at. So Face It and Fix It. I never knew what I&I was, and most people don't, but that's infiltration and intrusion of water into a closed loop system if it's working correct. We put out about 5 to 6 million gallons of water a day. So in a system, you would expect 5 to 6 million gallons to come back. But when you have excess rains and you have pipes in the water on the ground and there's water soaking in it, stormwater. So we're not producing 20, 30 million gallons of wastewater. We're still producing our 5 to 6 million gallons of water coming back. Some of it's wastewater, some of it's shower water, but it's all considered the water that's not, purified yet. But then you add on top of that millions of gallons of stormwater. And sometimes people don't realize, and we saw that last year with our storms, stormwater can be worse at times when it goes into the bays directly because it's bringing everything with it, the oil, the fertilizer, everything else that is worse in a different way, but it can be there. So we learned all of this and we're going through it. Then we have last year's storms, and we have 3 months of heavy rain with Debbie comes through at the end of it. Then we have Helene, who comes in and brings 6 feet of water into some areas. Again, we're mostly a waterway and water there. Then we have Milton. Yeah. And, it brings it all in and it just overwhelms our system. So our system is able to handle 9 to 10 million gallons. So, and we're bringing in 5 to 6 if it was a closed loop system. But when you look at that, when you're having 20, 30 million gallons, we have to bypass it. And what that means is it still goes through the system, and it's not raw sewage that we're releasing. People sometimes put that out there. It's not raw sewage, but it's not treated to drinkable water. Mm-hmm. One thing the county has the very forward thinking is they have the holding areas, because there's times the county can't keep up with the volume, but you have a place to store it. And then when you have lower volume, you're able then to produce it and do the same thing we do with it, release it into the river and that. So in the waterways, that's every municipality in every state. And those things are being worked on. But we now are working on a 3 million gallon storage area over by our wastewater plant. We're working our well that was permitted and in the ground before any of this happened. Our clarifier that's 3 times the size of anything we have there now that will go online hopefully at the end of this year. Would it have solved all our problems last year? No, but would it have helped them? And in collaboration with the county, and this is getting real deep in the woods, and at 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm seeing this happen last year, the county, so when you're cleaning the water that comes in and the wastewater that comes in, there's bugs that actually eat all the stuff. Mm-hmm. And the bugs are in those clarifiers. Well, our bugs got overwhelmed and died. Mm. So the county gave us some bugs. We're coming right back with the bugs that eat all that stuff.
Yeah. Fascinating.
And eat all that stuff. And then, they die, and that's when you get the solids and we take out, and that's what you take somewhere else. The bugs, well, then you got your bugs, and we were like 2 days into the bugs, and they were coming back strong. Then we had the floods of Helene. Right. And it was like they killed our bugs again, and that's a sick plant. But, so we were bypassing, but it was still being partially treated. And, one of the things that we see through our Sarasota Bay estuary and other things is the Manatee River, we never want to release 1 million gallons of anything. But when we talked to, and I talked to a lot of people, my family was Cortez fishermen, first 3 generations. Water quality is important. But when you're saying, okay, what's the water quality? Well, the birds, the fish, the manatees, the rays, the albino 2 white dolphins that were swimming out there I saw last year. Where I live, I look right at it, and we're seeing all of this. Well, if the water is sick, they're not coming. Can we do better? And do we want to release any? Absolutely not. But 1 million gallons is what our scientists are telling us is like an eyedropper in a bathtub. It gets diluted. And sometimes it's not the test that shows sometimes Manatee River is not a swimming river. It's you can swim in it, but it's not a bathing beach area. So sometimes you have to judge the quality of the water on the right product that it needs to be with. And so again, I'm not saying anything, but we're making this better. And I did a presentation last year to a very hostile group. And they were nice, but they were hostile. I was willing to go talk to them. And the one lady said to me at the end of the presentation, because I would have talked for 3 hours. I don't care, because I'll get you information I know, and then you have to make your decision. But I said to her, she goes, well, can you guarantee us that we won't have the same issues that we had through these storm seasons? And I said, absolutely not. And they all looked at me and got quiet. And the 5 council people were sitting there in the front row, and our administrator was there, and they're all looking at me. And I said, but what I will guarantee you is we're going to be better today than we were yesterday, and we're going to be better tomorrow than we were today. And it's honest. And we, compared to last year from the same time, we have released a lot less. And we just had this that came up that is saying 1 million gallons was released. Well, it wasn't raw sewage, first off. It's partially treated. Is it good for the environment? At 1 million gallons, no, but it's not going to do what people think. If we released 1 million gallons every day, yes, and it wasn't, nobody fell asleep, nobody did anything. There's comments you see. It was a situation that we had 4 inches of rain in about 2 hours. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't 4 inches of rain in a localized area. It was 4 inches of rain over the whole county.
Right. And
you saw on the post, DOT had areas, the county had areas that were having standing water. And it was the overwhelming part. And with our I&I, and we've done about, I think, 40 miles of pipes, and we got about another 120, and we're getting funding to do that. We're doing it. But it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take us 3 to 5 to 7 years.
Sure.
I hope it's on the 3 part.
Yeah.
But it's all DEP permitting. It's everything else that happens. And it's one thing that I said to President Biden when he called me last year, because he called after the hurricane.
Interesting.
And it was interesting. And it was funny. We're sitting in our PSOC the day after Milton came through. And, you can take it for what it is, politically or not. At the time, we were going through a presidential election. And he's sitting there and it says Washington, D.C. on my phone. We're in our PSOC operating. And he goes, hi, Mayor Brown, this is Joe Biden. Well, we were in 50 people in our meeting. You guys have the EOC. We work together through ours, and it's great. But when you guys got to go back to the county running and we got to go back to the city running, we got to have the coordination together when it's happening and then our own, because we are, like you said, the largest municipality. So I stood up, obviously, out of respect for the office, and I said, hello, Mr. President, thank you for calling. And one of the things I was most proud of our county, that we worked hard with the shelters and the information. Did we have some missteps on some things? We all did. That's going to happen. Can we do better? Yes. But you know what we didn't have is one death.
That's right.
And I'm proud of that for our community, county, cities, and everything. And I watched a thing the other night about North Carolina and that. And it was so sad that there's still people missing because they're buried and they'll never find them. And that is just a sad situation.
Yeah.
But so our community, with all of the stuff, we've had devastating losses in property, but we can replace property and we can fix things that we can make better. So I don't know. I get off on things.
No,
I
that's
get
okay.
excited.
I think one thing I think it would be nice to hear from Mayor of the City of Bradenton, the City of Bradenton, right, is, can we drink our water from the faucet? Can you take a shower? Is there anything that your residents need to know when it comes to their water quality today? It's September 2025. Like, what would you say to that?
So as we know, people want their toilets to flush, they want their water to be able to drink, and they want their garbage picked up. And obviously public safety is a big part of all of that. But if those 3 things are working, you're better. So obviously we've gone through a little bit of our Face It and Fix It plan, which you can go online, City of Bradenton, to the Face It and Fix It, and see everything we're doing. We're getting a lot of state, federal, local help funding-wise, because we cannot tax our way out of it. We've got to work it. Your drinking water, Evers Reservoir, is working fine. Is there times, your water has never been unsafe to drink. Is there times you may have a little bit of smell to it and you don't like the taste or that? Sometimes that is, but sometimes that's the natural effect of having an open body of water that is your drinking water. We've worked with the state, and we were one of the first ones in the state of Florida to work with the government to get SRS wells that go down, you put the water in. So we can put 2 million down a day. We can only take 2 million up. So we're working on that process at our plant with those wells that we can put it down. And when you bring it back up, it's even fresher than it was when you put it down. So those things are going to happen. We have cross connections with the county. Last year, you had a problem. You had water off and you had too much that you had to get rid of. We needed the water because some of our things were going down. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, we're out there with your staff, our staff, finding those valves that should have been checked a little bit more often than they were. But your guys were great. Our guys were great. They opened them up. We were getting about 2 million gallons cross-connected with us per day. So we never lost. That's the collaboration. No matter where you are politically, that's a collaboration that always has to stay. and we work in that. So that's, I can go on forever with that stuff, but it's just, I've learned so much as what we can do to help others. And sometimes if people that put stuff on Facebook, just say it, sometimes you have to step back and get a little bit of information before you make that one comment.
And I think we're all learning. I just learned a lot
Me too.
From what you just said. So again, it's easy to comment on something that you might have a limited knowledge base about, but once you start listening and realizing, it's one of the things that personally I've experienced going into government. There's so much happening,
right,
and there's so much that I don't know,
right.
And it's our job to communicate that and educate that to the public, right? That's what we're doing now.
And one last comment on our wastewater and all our face it and fix it, because it's our water, our wastewater, and our stormwater. Two things that we're doing very aggressively is working with state and federal governments. One of the things when you have hurricanes, there is a pot of money that's opened up. We are applying for every bit of money we can get. And with our situation, we're getting a lot of it. So we're in the process of probably being, hopefully if everything goes well, to have somewhere north of $150 million since I've been mayor in grants and money that will go towards those. And it's about a $250 million project that if we could say everything is done, that's what it's going to cost us over the next years. So I had a friend of mine that's very influential downtown, got several buildings and wants to involved in the growth of downtown. He called me when one of the headlines said raw sewage spilled. We have never spilled raw sewage from our plant. Now, if a lift station or something breaks, there is raw sewage, but we get to that and get as minimal as possible. It's
usually contained very quickly.
Contained quickly.
Yeah.
And with all of this county lift stations, I think you guys have 400 and some. We have 67. So we're working on those, and we're getting them off the river. That's where we're getting this money to move them off and do things, which takes years by the time you plan it, do it, and get it done. But he asked me, he goes, Gene, if you had $1 billion right now, how long would it take you to fix it? And I thought about everything I knew at that time, and I said 5 to 10 years, because just going through the process, I said, we can't tear up every city street. We can't do everything. It's going to take 5 to 10 years. He goes, with what you're doing, how long is it going to take you? I said 5 to 10 years, because we are securing dollars in federal and state and local grants and different things to do, while still operating through the enterprise zone that we do with the money for stormwater and without raising fees aggressively. You're going to have to, some fees are going to go up $1, but if we had to pay for all of that, we'd have to raise taxes, double them. We'd have to do things, and that's not going to happen. So how do we fix it within the means we have, and it's still going to be the same amount of time? Now, if we have other storms, that's going to delay things, but it may open up more pots of money too. So we're utilizing that. The CDBG money that the county got, the cities weren't able to apply for that. So it was a matter of, we went to, talking with our county commissioners and Chair Cruz, where's our portion? Because we couldn't apply for a portion. It all came to the county as a whole. So there was numbers figured, and all the counties or all the cities got their amount. Well, I don't know if you say fortunately, unfortunately, with the CDBG rules, the city of Bradenton has the most volume of CDBG opportunities. And so, that portion is $32.7 million. So yes, I'm going to ask for that through our council with the county, because that's the portion of the number of residents that we serve. And we are not only going to help residents with it, we're doing other things, but we're also going to help the laterals that go to the houses, because we can do that. Because certain people in certain areas can afford to fix their plumbing if it breaks. Other areas need help. So if we can get 1,000 homes of their laterals the lateral goes from your house to the city street on private property, but we can use that money to fix that lateral that family would never be able to fix, and that will lessen the volume. 10 houses wouldn't make a difference. 1,000 houses of that volume seeping in there, getting into our wastewater system would help, and that's the goal.
Oh my, and that sound means we have reached our lightning round. Mayor, world famous lightning round. Quick questions, quick answers. Are you ready?
I am.
Lightning round, here we go. Your favorite spot in Bradenton to grab a meal?
Downtown.
One word that best describes the city of Bradenton right now?
Vibrant.
Your favorite annual Bradenton event or festival?
Anything that happens downtown during the year.
What is the best view in the city?
I think right now it's on the top of 920 off of their area, because you can really see what's happening and going around.
What's one thing that visitors to Bradenton should experience before they go back home?
Our arts and culture and our Riverwalk.
If you could snap your fingers and solve one community challenge overnight, what would it be? I got an idea.
Obviously, traffic.
Your favorite sports team or player to cheer on?
Everybody knows I'm a Florida Gator fan. So.
There you go. All right. And if you could describe Bradenton's future in one word, what would it be?
Collaboration.
Well, thank you so much, Mayor Brown, for joining us and sharing your insights on the progress happening in Bradenton. Major projects, community improvements, strong partnerships. These are all things that you've highlighted, and we hope to continue to reinforce that in our relationships moving forward. And thank you for listening to another episode of Chambers, Changes, and Conversations. Be sure to subscribe anywhere where you find podcasts. Don't miss out on any of the great podcast episodes we've got coming up, and we've got some really good ones. Lee Washington is going to be our guest. On behalf of the men and women doing work that matters behind the scenes for you, I'm Casey Zempel.
I'm Stephanie Garrison.
Mayor Gene Brown.
Make it a great day to live, work, and play in Manatee County. The opinions expressed by guests of Chambers, Changes, and Conversations do not necessarily reflect those of Manatee County government or its employees.